Our 175-pound WBC Light Heavyweight Champion Adonis Superman Stevenson, 24-1 with 20 KOs, has fought, what, 5 times in 17, 18 months, something like that. Well, anyway, I'm T-Street Controversy. This is T-Street Controversy Live, and actually about, I'm going to say 12 hours ago, Adonis Stevenson weighed in at 174.6, and his opponent, who people do not know, Dmitry Sukhotsky, weighed in at 173.4. They're going to be fighting tonight in about 15 hours or so for the light heavyweight title. Sukhotsky is ranked, but as far as fans are concerned, we don't know him. And also, this video is going to get kind of deep because there's so much we got to talk about. So I guess I'm going to start off with the contents of the video. We're going to talk about the fact that Adonis Stevenson, if he wins tonight in his voluntary defense next, he has to fight the winner of Sergey Kovalev and Jean Pascal in 2015. Jean Pascal, you can somewhat say he's an HBO fighter. He's been doing a lot of business with them. But Sergey Kovalev and main events Kathy Duva, they are HBO. So, and NBC. So would they go over to Showtime? I don't think they would mind, but it's an interesting scenario because of the politics that are involved as far as boxing. If you don't understand the politics of why Adonis Stevenson and Sergey Kovalev hasn't happened yet, then you are so out of the loop. But anyway, moving on December 19th, 2014, a Friday, which is today, Adonis Stevenson is going to be taking on Dmitry Sukhotsky. Sukhotsky is I think he's 26-2 with 16 KOs. I know he's got 16 KOs, and I know he's got 2 defeats, and he's never been stopped before. Adonis Stevenson needs a stoppage, and I know, yes, Adonis Stevenson has fought quite a lot in the last 18 months. 5 fights. Now it'll be 6 fights, in 18 months. He's had a very tough schedule. So when you look at the last fight with Fanfara, you have to say, okay, fans were so pissed because he didn't fight Kovalev. But we have to also look, well, he really did have a tough-ass schedule. I'm not saying or giving excuses for what he did or what his manager, as far as his career path and going over to Showtime and basically limiting the chances of him fighting Sergey Kovalev. I'm not saying what he did was right, but I'm saying if you look at the fact of Tony Bellew, very good fighter, even though he's from the UK, a lot of fans don't know him. You got Tavares Cloud. You got Chad Dawson. Of course, we know, Chad Dawson is. And then you got, Right to Passage, the light heavyweight 168-pound version of Chop Corley, Darnell Boone. So the schedule has been tough, but he has shown no interest, even in post-fight interviews as far as the fights on HBO. We're going to talk about Tavares Cloud, Tony Bellew. He didn't talk of Sergey Kovalev, He was talking about Bernard Hopkins and Lucien Bute. And I understand, yes, those are Canadian fighters that were both beaten by fighters who are not from Canada, and then Bernard Hopkins beat Jean Pascal in Canada, so I can understand, and Carl Froch, I think he said Carl Froch too. Carl Froch had beat Lucien Bute, and not in Canada, but basically he wants to get some Canadian retribution, but all this does not mean shit. You know why it don't mean shit? Because fans want him to fight Sergey Kovalev. So if you don't know, the WBC has been in new form this year as far as 2014 is concerned, and 2015 is going to look pretty good. As far as, if you don't remember, the WBA, the IBF, and the WBC had 2 meetings this year. They met up, I believe one in Cancun and somewhere else. And what they're focusing on is making their mandatories and also making the best fight the best as far as the governing bodies of the belts are concerned. Let's go back to early 2015. People forget this, but the WBC had ordered Manny Pacquiao to be the #1 contender for Mayweather's WBC belt. So Mayweather was going to be mandated to, basically he was going to have a mandatory fight with Manny Pacquiao until Manny Pacquiao defeated Timothy Bradley, and became the WBO champion. But as far as other divisions are concerned, see, you got an interesting thing going on. Perfect example. WBA, Super World Champion. That's the full WBA belt. Gennady Gennadievich Golovkin is going to be taking on Miguel Cotto, mandatory if they both, win their next fights in 2015 to unify. Now, as far as making mandatories with a champion of another governing body, that is, that doesn't happen, too much. You even have talks of James DeGale, UK fighter, and George Groves, UK fighter, fighting for the IBF #1 contender spot and the WBC #1 contender spot. So, well, I guess what I'm saying to you is the WBC has been making the fights, or doing their best to try to make the fights that fans want to see, or doing their best to try to end this network Cold War, by trying to make what it looked like to me. They wanted Danny Garcia to fight Victor Postol so Danny Garcia can fight on HBO. That's just the way things look to me. But like I said, if you don't understand the storylines and been following the actual real politics of boxing, all this stuff is going to sound like some jargon bullshit. You're like, what is he talking about? But let's go to Adonis Stevenson. Like I said, Adonis Stevenson will have to fight Sergey Kovalev. If Sergey Kovalev defeats Jean Pascal, I believe that it is in April. Now, Adonis Stevenson was targeting Jean Pascal, but I guess they were taking their time with the negotiations, from my understanding. Jean Pascal was out there, he just defeated that guy Bolonti. I'm not even going to get into that debacle, but that fight was out there for Al Heyman and Adonis Stevenson to make, to where in a smart move, main event, they went out there and got Jean Pascal and said, yo, look, we got 3 belts. Come fight us. You're always fighting on HBO anyway. And, we'll probably most likely give you more money. It's like, it's a deep, complex, ugly situation, because when you look at it, you see Adonis Stevenson boxed into a corner. For example, if he defeats Sukhotsky tonight, who would he fight next? Now, this is German guy, Jürgen Bräumer, forgot how to pronounce his name. I would like to see him fight him. He's heavily ranked, but once again, you got to follow global boxing, and you got to watch a whole lot of cards in German, and just be sitting there not knowing what they're talking about. It's dedication. But you look at, well, who else could he fight? He could fight Lucien Bute. Would they do that to Lucien Bute right now? Lucien Bute is fighting fully at 175 pounds. He's right there with that, right there just above 175 as far as, like he would weigh in at like 172, 171, something like that. So he can bounce back to 168 if he wants to, but you got that fight out there. That would be very big in Quebec, and also Lucien Bute sells a lot. Lucien Bute has more selling power than Jean Pascal and Adonis Stevenson, which is the reason why Jean Pascal, even though he defeated Lucien Bute, this recent card that Jean Pascal headlined is because Lucien Bute got injured. So it was going to be Lucien Bute fighting this Bolonti guy and Jean Pascal fighting. I forgot who he was going to be fighting. And he was going to be on the undercard even though he won. So Adonis Stevenson versus Lucien Bute can be made, but will they do that to Lucien Bute? We know his chin is kind of suspect, but then he has the boxing ability to outbox, and maybe one on the cards, against Adonis Stevenson. But he's going to have to take a hell of a beating, so I don't know. I see Lucien Bute may be getting stopped. So you can ask yourself, well, who else is there? You got Bernard Hopkins, Would Cartwright taking Adonis Stevenson fight? No. Might as well throw a no. It's not going to happen. So you got a situation where fans have been saying, well, Bernard Hopkins should get Adonis Stevenson right now. If Bernard Hopkins were to get Adonis Stevenson, let's say in March, or April, the same months that Pascal's will be taking on Kovalev, and if B-Hop wins, he'll become the WBC champion and either go on to fight Jean Pascal in the third fight or Sergey Kovalev in a second fight. And you have to ask yourself, do fans really want to see that? Because if Hopkins does fight Adonis Stevenson, that would be next for him. But the question is, would fans want to see that? So that would be the stakes as far as if Adonis Stevenson gets past Sukhotsky and if he fights Bernard Hopkins. Because remember, Bernard Hopkins has a relatively small window. He's not the type of fighter at his age that can take off, for a year. So within 4 months of his last fight, we should know if he's going to be taking another fight or not. So I'm sure he's going to be watching this Adonis Stevenson fight. I wouldn't even be surprised if he's in the crowd. Now, if he's in the crowd, it may not be a situation like when Hopkins was in the crowd for the Kovalev fight and then announced the fight afterwards. But if he's in the crowd, that's a clear sign to me that he may be targeting Adonis Stevenson. So, the fight can be made, I just don't know. This Adonis Stevenson situation is ugly. Oh, and by the way, the WBC is allowing Adonis Stevenson one more voluntary defense. So he gets to fight Sukhotsky, and then he gets to fight somebody else in March or April of his choosing. And then after that, he's got to fight the winner of Pascal and Kovalev sometime in the fall or the winter of 2014. And also with that fight, what they did was they say there ain't going to be no purse bid or nothing. Both of you guys are going to get 50-50. So they eliminated the politics as far as the money is concerned. So Adonis Stevenson can't be like, well, if the money's right. So you see how the WBC has been operating to where now the only hurdle is going to be like, well, it's going to be on HBO Showtime. And they're not going to leave it up to, I don't believe they're going to leave it up to Adonis Stevenson. I think they want to strip him, but that's just my personal opinion. I'm T Street Controversy. This is T Street Controversy Live. I cover every single major fight live, realcombatmedia.com. And what I'm going to be doing, I usually do something called Google Hangout. Basically, it's a live video conference. So we're going to be talking up here about boxing and everything. And I usually do it on Saturday nights, but I'm going to go to the movies, tomorrow night, hang out. So I'm going to be doing it tonight. So about an hour after the event goes off, you're going to have Artur Bertiev fighting. You're going to have Andre Durrell, and then not fighting each other, and then Stevenson versus Sukhotsky. So about an hour after the event, I'm going to do Google Hangout. And what Google Hangout is live streaming service, yada, yada, yada. Please subscribe.